Welcome, Self-Made Nation. Colleen O'Connell-Campbell here, wealth advisor at RBC Dominion Securities and your host. Today on the Cash Rich Exit podcast, we're joined by Joanna Track, entrepreneur, strategist, and founder of Good Eggs & Co. She's navigated multiple successful exits. Known for her no-nonsense approach to content marketing and brand strategy, Joanna brings a unique perspective to building companies designed for scale and sale. I heard Joanna speak at Business Transition Forum program back in May of 2025 in Toronto, and I was fascinated with her philosophy of avoiding quote unquote rented land and creating brand assets that endure and thrive beyond an exit. As you listen today, keep one question in mind. What would a cash-rich exit look like for me? What would a cash-rich exit look like for you and your business? If you're ready to uncover the answer, let's grab a coffee or a virtual coffee for that matter. Let's look at your wealth gap and let me see how I can support you. So whether you're building your first business or preparing to sell, Joanna's candid insights today on the show will help you look at building your business from control, clarity, and long-term value in mind. We're welcoming Joanna Track to the Cash Rich Exit podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thanks, Colleen. It's so great to be here.
I've already let the listeners have a sense of where we met. Multiple business exit entrepreneur, heard you speak on a panel and wanted to bring your story here to the podcast. Why don't we jump in and right off the bat, like how do you define a successful exit, Joanna?
Well, it's funny, even putting those two words together, I find a little bit triggering in a way because you heard me at the panel saying I find that a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, equate an exit to success or even the other way around, like you're only successful if you exit.
Mhm.
And so always want to start off by saying the biggest thing I learned was that the two are not necessarily hand in hand. However, I think a successful exit based on my own experience is, obviously realizing the value that you put in and feeling, and then just from a dollars and cents, making sure you got a good ROI on what you've put in, both time and money. But also to me, success is if you can, have a continuing legacy. So something that, continues to create jobs and opportunities and a brand that people love um, and yeah, because a lot of times what you see is people exit and then everything changes.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that to me, I mean, maybe the acquirer considers it success because they got what they wanted. So it's also a very subjective
Right.
definition.
Good point. Good point. And not all business owners or entrepreneurs get to experience more than one exit. So
Mhm.
in your case, there are several. Um, can we do a little bit of a go back in time in the time machine to not each one, but maybe the more monumental ones, and
Mhm.
share some tidbits along the way. I mean, I have lots of questions to ask today, but let's talk about the fact that you've got
Yeah.
multiple businesses that you created and then moved on from.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I'm here to answer the
Mhm.
question.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
yeah. So, my first entrepreneurial baby, as I call it, was a digital business called Sweet Spot. It was really the first of its kind in Canada. You have to go backwards to the early 2000s, where digital content and publishing, well, let's just talk email specifically, was mostly B2B. You're out of ink, you need more printer paper, here's your bank statement, wasn't sexy stuff.
Exactly.
But there was this new trend emerging in the US of these editorial properties that were having more of an content creative flair to them. I had seen one specifically called Daily Candy. It had spread across the US. It was a daily newsletter for women that rounded up all the latest trends and happenings from fashion, beauty, restaurants, all the kind of things that women were hungry for,
Curious about?
curious. Yeah. And then I happened to be living in New York at the time and then moved back to Toronto and realized there was nothing like it here. I happened to be working in advertising marketing and decided to take the leap and launched my own version, which was called Sweet Spot. And so that was 2004. I continued to work full time, well, full time then part time in the agency until I was ready to commit full time. And there's no such thing as an overnight success. So it,
What?
what? Yeah. Yeah. So a couple years and grinding and burning through a lot of credit cards, RSP,
Right.
building this thing. Actually, well, I was first approached by another media company and I went through the whole due diligence process. And at the 11th hour, they decided they wanted a wait and see approach. They said, you're still really small. Let's see what your next 6 months brings. And so, luckily for me, I was then within a few months approached by Rogers Publishing. And actually, they approached me with the intent of forming a partnership. And I think it was their way of dating before you get married.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
how can we help you and you can help us? But it very quickly evolved into, at the time, they actually bought a minority stake in the company, about a third, but with the intent of acquiring the remainder over time based on performance. So that deal was struck in 2006. And so from there, it grew quite rapidly. It started as a Toronto-based publication. We had national, like for cities across Canada, full-blown website. It was really influencer marketing before influencer marketing.
So
And
what do you call that? Early adopter
early,
and
yeah,
first
it was.
mover.
It really was because
Mhm.
then even a lot of the big traditional media companies tried to launch their own, but what they didn't have was that real grassroots flair. And the brand voice was really built around this idea of your best friend telling you, your cool friend telling you stuff.
It sounds a little bit like the Sex and the City
Exactly what it
version of, the editorial. I never really watched the show. I just know the overall premise of it. But that's kind of what it sounds
was
like,
bang
right? Yeah.
on. That was
Yeah.
exactly what it was. And so even when the large traditional publishers tried to do it, they couldn't mirror it because they were coming at it from a corporate approach and it didn't
Hmm.
have that authentic feel to it. And that was why Rogers wanted to buy it because they couldn't create it themselves authentically.
Hmm.
So by 2010, I fully exited, and I would call that a successful exit as far as it was financially successful. My team, they went and got jobs at Rogers with all the perks that came with that. But, foreshadowing, it took 24 months pretty much to the date that Rogers shut it down. And so
Mm.
even though I was long gone in the sense of like my physical presence because I had exited with the exit, I was moved on to another startup. It was heartbreaking.
Hmm.
And when I said at the beginning, like leaving that legacy, like, do I look at that as a failure on my part? No, there's nothing I could have done differently. Well, yes, sorry. There is something I could have done differently, which is I could have stayed and not exited.
You could have stayed and not exited or not gone down the path. You could have just continued to grow the project, but it was part of your journey, and it,
Exactly.
yeah. So different on the continuum of what you would call successful, right? Yeah, great, amazing ex learning experience to
Oh,
go
I mean,
into your
that threw
next
me
deal.
into
Yeah.
totally. I mean, it raised my profile, my credibility, and that was what sort of led me to my next deal, which was I was approached by a group of investors. This was now early days of e-commerce. So yeah,
Mhm.
I was always sort of on the leading edge.
Leading edge of things, right?
Yeah, and they were looking for not just a face, but someone to lead into the fashion space and e-commerce. And I had obviously had some money to invest, so built this idea around an e-commerce property that was very much couched in a content meets commerce model. So not only were we a fully operating 360-degree e-commerce operation, so inventory fulfillment, customer service, the whole thing. We also produced a weekly digital magazine, 7-day-a-week newsletters to inspire and engage women to purchase the product. So it was a massive undertaking. And it was 2011. So again, very new to the Canadian market. Canada is lagging behind the US. And also the reality that we live in that, well, was even worse then, isn't sadly much better now, is that at the time, 1% of institutional monies went to female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So despite my best efforts and a great business model, I met with almost every institution and venture capital fund in this country and didn't get a dime from any of them. I ended up raising over $5 million from individuals,
Right.
which was a huge feat.
Wow, yes.
But in the long run, not able to scale the business because it required more capital than that. We had a 4-year run and was subject to incredible like success from a critical like people loving it. But
Mm.
we couldn't, the revenue couldn't keep up with the capital needs. So had to wind it down. And that was also heartbreaking and a huge amount of lessons learned.
Right, right. I don't even know how we get into the where the capital comes from, but I'm having some conversations locally, and I think we have got a lot. Let's just say there's a lot of work still to be done in that area, and I think we need to talk about these great stories. Being able to share your experience only better socializes to a greater audience of for that need.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that was 2011, and I think now in 2024, 25, the stat is now 5%. So like if we were dealing with 1% now, and yes, that's success, but it's certainly not going to get us where it should be.
Mhm.
Even though, I mean, this could take us in a whole other tangent, but
Exactly.
women-led companies, women on boards, all the things that lead to
Hmm.
success. So why the dollars don't match is completely irritating and heart-wrenching.
Yeah, and we could go down another path because um I had another experience of listening to a founder on a panel. It was during International Women's Day this year in 2025. Some material that was put out by our Invest Ottawa, which is kind of our innovation hub in Ottawa. And this founder was talking about her story and that she was trying to shift some of the power dynamics without telling the whole story on the stage. Needless to say, only a few weeks later, she's no longer CEO of the company she founded. There's a whole story behind it, but just interesting, her perspective. And I'd love to get her on the story. Maybe offline we can talk about that one. But
Oh, I'd love to.
yeah, so what was the name of that particular business, Joanna, that you just
eLuxe.
okay.
eLuxe.
Okay. And did the next business turn, was that the bullet, the next
So
piece?
in between those,
Okay.
um, post eLuxe and pre the bullet, I now am a decade into sort of startup junkie land and pretty
And the
burned out.
adrenaline that comes with it.
Yeah, I mean, so this was 2014-ish. I have my son is at that point under 5 years old, and I'm like completely burnt out. So my idea of a break, instead of launching a brand, is I launched a consultancy, which was Good Eggs. We'll call it 1.0 because I'm
Okay.
now running 2.0 today.
Hmm.
And it was leveraging my all my experiences from both businesses, but really with the e-commerce and helping other brands get into e-commerce, not so much from a technical point of view. While we were helping people build their sites using partners, it was helping them on the marketing side.
Right.
So it was the early days of social, but it was a lot of email and web optimization. And then what ended up happening is many of these are startups and they happen to have a lot of female-led brands. And so I ended up becoming somewhat of a consultant to these founders and helping them outside of marketing because I had done it. So finance,
Hmm.
business modeling, HR,
Yeah, and
really how to.
so what I learned about you, I believe, if I'm correct, you actually have more of a finance background than marketing background.
Yeah.
Along the way, the numbers and the stories started to fit together.
Exactly. Yes. So, yes, I started my adult life. I mean, I majored in math, I did my
Mhm.
MBA in finance, but yes, I had an aha moment very early that I loved marketing and didn't love finance. So I dropped it from a formal sense, but it's obviously, yeah, I have that thinking and mindset that I carry with me.
Okay. And now I understand the linkage, in terms of the looking into you, stalking you before chatting today, because I did notice good eggs in sort of two spots, and um, thanks for pulling that together. Yes,
Yeah.
the current business is Good Eggs and Co. Right?
Yeah, so I can tell you how we got. So yeah, so I was doing Good Eggs 1.0 for about
Hmm.
4 years. And then about 4 years in, and this is a classic, I guess, consultant peeve, is I was advising all these companies and sometimes they would listen, but most times they wouldn't. And I was getting really frustrated, as most entrepreneurs would, of like wanting to just things to be done a certain way. And so, and then a new trend popping up in the US was these daily newsletters that were rounding up the news in a conversational voice and and bringing it more to the masses and competing with the traditional news outlets. And to me, I thought, hey, like this is basically a sweet spot for the news. Oh, I can build my own brand again. So I
Hmm.
put Good Eggs on hold and I started The Bullet in 2016. And so the Bullet was a daily newsletter. We called it making the news easier to digest. So it was like the newspaper in 7 minutes or less with a dose of humor. And we started growing that, and it was going pretty well. Now, the publishing landscape had changed, so monetization had changed. So whereas in the early 2000s, you could make a lot of money through advertising, sponsored content, it took a lot more, took a much bigger audience and stuff to do that in 2016. And we were doing some of that, but we kind of go through feast and famine. So I
Right.
decided that our revenue model instead would be to utilize our resources and white label our service for other brands. So in addition to publishing the newsletter every day, we were publishing newsletters for other companies.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was going really well until our biggest client was Cadillac Fairview, and we were publishing their newsletter for 19 malls across Canada, and COVID
I
came.
was gonna say, bum bum.
Yeah, bum, bum, bum. So, wah, wah. Then COVID came, the malls closed, our biggest client had to pull the plug,
Hmm.
and we essentially went on life support. So this is through 2020. And then it turned out one night in July of 2020, I got an email in my inbox that at first I thought was a joke from one of the dragons from Dragon's Den, saying they were a big fan of the bullet and really impressed with it. And one thing led to another, and over months, they ended up acquiring the business. And so at the time. So very opposite experience of the Rogers deal because we were in distress and there was no secret about it. So
Yeah,
it wasn't a lucrative deal financially at all. But what it was is it was a life raft for 8 employees, keep the brand alive,
right.
and the right thing at the right time. And so we ended up merging into their existing business, also running the Bullet, although a decision again was made about a year and a half in to wind down the Bullet and focus on other content. And so disheartening again, but this is the thing when you exit,
Right.
you lose
You
control.
lose control. But the other interesting thing, right, is there it's a little bit of like meeting, what is the next piece. And it's just kind of interesting how and when the pieces have come together. Like it doesn't sound like when you created Sweet Spot that necessarily you were expecting to be acquired, right? And then
Not,
with the bullet, again, just a good experience to in terms of the legacy, maybe not of the actual product service, but a legacy of the experience of the people you worked with will. seems to me that without talking to interviewing all of them,
Oh,
that it was a good positive thing. Um,
absolutely. Well, the validation for that is, and I'll tell this story a million times over, is my business partner today in Good Eggs started for me as an intern at Sweet Spot in 2005. She is now
wow.
my business partner. One of my main writers from Sweet Spot has been with me ever since, almost 20 years. So, yes, the legacy, while the brands don't exist, is the culture and the career opportunities that, not only I brought to them, but that they've brought to me. And so, yeah, this team, most of the team that works with me today have worked with me in different manifestations over the last 2 decades.
Yeah, so much experience in this area and quote unquote successful exits in many ways. Um, I'm going to pivot a little bit because there is something that you said on stage as well when I heard you speak at Business Transition Forum, and it was don't build on rented land. And I'd love for you to expand that a little bit. I mean,
Mhm.
I've heard you explain it. I also intuitively can pick up what that means, but I'd love for you to expand on that for the
Yeah,
self-made nation.
sure. So, I mean, I speak about it through the lens of digital businesses, but I do think that businesses across the spectrum can take it and define it in the terms and the systems in their worlds.
Hmm.
So, right now we're living in a time where a lot of businesses are digital and they're not only their marketing method, but like the way they interact with their customers, the way they transact happens a lot through social media. And the thing is with social media is you don't own your audience. They are owned by Meta and LinkedIn and whomever else. And so if your business model is standing on the stilts of someone else who can pull the plug at any time and leave you without a customer base or an audience or change the algorithm and you can't reach them anymore, then what do you have, right? I mean, that can set you really far back. And so I really encourage all the clients I work with now, and even in my own businesses, that's also why I love email. I love email as a consumption channel, but what the thing with email is someone has said to you, yes, you have my permission to contact me on my personal address. You
Hmm.
don't even have that with your mailbox on the front door of your house.
Right.
You can opt out anytime on email. And while most people follow the rules, some don't. But for the
Hmm.
most part, that means you're coming as long as I say you can come, and I'm giving you information. I'm also giving you patterns. You're seeing when I open it, you see what I click on. You own that information. So
Hmm.
that email database can be, and I've seen it happen because my exit to Rogers, that is what you are valued on. Every name you have on that list and the more information you have on the is worth money. Same goes with your website and the patterns, the content on your website. You've spent time and money and effort not only building the content, but building the traffic that goes to it. And so those are owned lands versus rented
Hmm.
lands. And I just really encourage people because right now in the world I live in of digital marketing, social media is the sexy one, and
Hmm.
email and even your website, not always like the sexiest subject matter, but everyone wants to focus on what am I posting on Instagram today? And I'm not saying don't do that. Your business might be very much an Instagram type of,
Style. Yeah.
might be very
Insta-worthy.
Insta-worthy and very valuable to you, but don't
Mm.
rely on it solely because you're at their mercy.
Yeah. And when I think about it too, from a broader business perspective, it's you know, renting space versus buying a building. It's something to
Exactly.
consider. It's not always the right choice,
Doesn't mean it's the
but
right
have a
answer.
due diligence around it. I also think about just generally speaking, creating the intellectual property versus, borrowing material from a bunch of other people's places, like actually having something that is um, not patent, that's not the right, copyright, the
Yeah, well, only, yeah. And
trademark. Hmm.
Totally. And yeah, that's like exactly. It might not always be the right answer to buy over rent a building, but you should be thinking about it.
Hmm.
The two other things you remind me of is like, again, with email, I have seen way too many brands, clients who I say to them, oh, what's your email database? Like, oh, I don't even know. I mean, we've captured people's email address, but I haven't really looked. We don't email them. Like you're sitting on a gold mine and you're
Hmm.
not treating it like that. I encourage people to really pay attention. And then the other thing is all those copyrights, the things you own, like your brand name, your tagline. I find a lot of entrepreneurs when they start up, they're like, "Oh, I'm so small. I'm not going to worry about that." Yeah, well, it doesn't take long before, you might be in a fight over the name of your company. You're about to lose it because you
Hmm.
didn't copyright it. And then the third one is um, it goes to sort of customer experience. And my e-commerce learnings is, when we started the business, we were so small, and so we were outsourcing so many functions, 3PL, logistics and shipping and all these things. And again, there's not necessarily a right or wrong, but think about it and take it into consideration because when you give someone else that direct access to your clients or your customers, they're controlling the customer experience and the brand experience. So if
Right.
they just dump the package or they package it up and it looks like garbage, that's your brand that's reflected. So within the first year of eLuxe, we went from outsourcing most of those functions to bringing it all in-house. Even though
Hmm.
it was more expensive, it was really important to ensure that there was consistency of the brand for the customers.
Well, and these days, also, if you're outsourcing, you want to be careful about the cybersecurity components as well, which is a whole other,
Oh yeah.
whole other layer. But as soon as you are depending on somebody else and there's some kind of integration of your data, that puts other layers of risk into the relationship with your client, however you want to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just, don't be careful how you're building. Make sure it's you own it versus being on rented land. I just think that is such a key note to think about, especially if you want something that's sellable.
Well, exactly. That's like you're going to be valued based on it. And yeah, no, don't just have it, but treat it like if it's a database, clean it, keep it fresh, all the things that you would do with any other asset you have.
So, tell us a little bit about the offering at Good Eggs and Co. now. Possibly you have an offering that somebody listening might be intrigued about. But regardless, let's just hear a little bit about what the current business is.
Yeah, I'd love to. So yes, I call this Good Eggs 2.0. Doesn't say that on the website. That's what we call it sometimes here.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, once I had lived out my contractual obligations, after selling the bullet, 20 years as an entrepreneur, a couple of years working for someone else. My heart is in being an entrepreneur. So I decided, what am I going to do? I want to go back to put out the shingle of Good Eggs again. And this time the shift was not that I don't still love e-commerce and we do have e-commerce clients, but it's not my focus. My focus and passion, the thread through everything over the 20 years is content and that sort of storytelling aspect and using content to meet business objectives. And so Good Eggs today is a marketing consultancy where we work with clients of all sizes, but mostly small, medium businesses. And we help them both with their marketing and strategy and execution, but really with a focus on content. These days, most marketing channels are content channels. Like I
Mhm.
joke that, unless you're asking us to create an ad for a bus shelter, we can do it. Like we're
Yeah.
not, we're not into that or subway
Mhm.
posters, but we manage people's email programs. We manage social media. We do a ton these days of thought leadership. So, working with senior executives and managing their LinkedIn for them. I heard a stat the other day. I want to say it was like 90% of senior executives on LinkedIn have someone else writing for them. And so, we are doing quite a bit of that, helping
Mhm.
build their profiles. websites, search engine optimization. And so for me, all of it though is rooted back and it goes back to my finance and analytical is how are we doing this to drive business results? So converting
Right.
to sales, generating leads,
Hmm.
all the things that make a business tick, and how are we doing it authentically? So the one of the things that I'm most proud of and the unique point of differentiation for me and my team is most marketing agencies are pure marketers, advertisers. Most of us grew up in editorial publishing. So we have a slant and a way of writing and telling stories that I believe is much more engaging. So, for example, with SEO, a lot of SEO agencies, not all, I'm generalizing,
Yeah.
it's SEO, it's keyword soup. They're
Right.
writing articles and making sure everything fits technically.
Hmm.
We write it like a journalist writing a story about a thing and then incorporating SEO best practices.
So
So,
is that because I saw a post that you put out, I think fairly recently, about saying that content marketing is dead. And then you're like, oh, but you just read this post. So there's the power of a great headline. And I think you said something about context versus content. What do you mean by that?
so it's about meeting people where they're at, really, right? And telling like a constant story that I'm telling so many clients and people when I'm talking is by way of this example. So many brands and companies, of course, your end goal is to make a sale. You're being pressured by your boss and their boss to close the deal, get the lead. The thing is, you're asking someone to get married before dating them.
Hmm.
And so where context is where are you at in this journey? And then what is the more reasonable ask? So what I encourage a lot of people is instead of asking people to sign up for a membership or buy the product, how about just give me your email address? Going back to our database,
Right,
how
exactly.
about follow me on social?
Hmm.
How about fill out my poll? Like really low bar asks. And then now that you're dating, let's get to know each other better.
Hmm.
Share some information. This is the context again. Like, what are their needs? What are their pain points right now? How can you help them? Well, two of the adages we have at Good Eggs is serve before you sell. And so, give people something first before asking them for something. And the other is the three E's. And we say every piece of content should educate, entertain, and or enlighten. And again, that's giving somebody something. And so it's by and that's where it matches to context too. Where is that person in their journey, not only with you, your brand, but in their life or professional in their business? Like where are you meeting them at that moment and what are you going to serve them? And then you're playing a long game. That's the thing too. Really good content and marketing overall is playing the long game, building the relationship, because then not only do you make the sale, but you keep them. So, like,
Hmm.
say you're in the mattress business. What reason would anyone have to sign up for a newsletter for a mattress company that you buy every 10 years? Well, I don't know. Give me tips on how to sleep better. Like, give me
Hmm.
something so that when the time comes around again, you are top of mind.
Yeah.
Don't not try to sell me a mattress every week.
Yeah, because I've got my mattress. I've got
Right.
my dining room set. I've got, yeah, all those things. The brick. Oh, I used a name. I might have to edit that out. But you know the ads on
Yeah.
TV for well like yeah, like I bought a sofa and a chair when we moved in 2021, and before that my leather sofa and love seat bought I bought them in 2003. You know, I'm buying quality that's going to last a long time, but so don't inundate me. Well, that business is closed, sadly, and now the business that I bought the new sofa and chair from is also closed. But that's again a conversation for another day.
Mhm.
Um, we're I want as we were talking about the work that you were doing with more like C-suite managing LinkedIn, I think also translates to the entrepreneur who's more likely the listener here in the self-made nation, other business owners. Um, and being that you're an expert in content, context marketing on digital platform, I'm wondering about your view on the interplay between the branding of the business versus the branding of the person, like the personal brand. What kind of insight, I know it's a very broad question, what kind of insight might you give? Because there's a whole lot of opinions about this. Um,
There are a lot of opinions, and I as myself and Good Eggs, we as a team have a very strong opinion, which is
okay.
they're both important, but people fall in love with people more than brands. So, of course, you need to put your brand out there because that's how you build brand equity, and it's very important in the grand scheme of things. But if you only do that, and especially if you're a leader, and to become a thought leader, you have to be the person. Like, I want to hear insights from a human,
Hmm.
not a brand. And so we push everyone to really promote themselves. And there is a lot of angst around that. Some people love it, but for the most part, people are very, whether it's imposter syndrome or whatever it
Hmm.
is, they're like, what are people going to think? Oh, it looks self-promotional. Or, I speak to people who maybe they work in a bigger company. They're like, well, my boss is going to think I'm just trying to promote myself. And that's when it comes to the how, not the what. Like, yeah, of course, if you go on LinkedIn and talk about how great you are, not going to do much, but
Hmm.
you're going on giving really strong insights into your subject matter expertise. Yes, that's helping you, but that's helping the brand you work for,
Hmm. Right.
showing that, they have smart people doing smart things. And so everyone's a winner.
I like that. I like that. Um, do you have any big vision for Good Eggs and Co. That you're willing to share where you'd like to see the company go?
It's really funny because about a year ago, I met with a mentor of mine who has run a large agency. And I said, because Sweet Spot and eLuxe, they both topped out at about 30 plus employees. And I said to this mentor of mine, I said, yeah, and you know what, Good Eggs, like, I don't want to go there. I'll be happy like when this gets to 10 employees and it's like steady. He's like, that is about the dumbest thing. Jeez.
Wow, that's blunt.
Yeah, like it was funny because he was like, because what, you're just gonna say I'm done growing? Like maybe that, like, but that's not what you know better. You've been there, you've managed bigger teams, like, and funny, right now, only a year later, and at the time we were probably four people, and we're now nine. So we're just about to hit 10.
Mhm.
And we have, like, from January to May of this year, we've done as much revenue as we did in all of last year. And so we're on this massive growth. And so I was thinking about him and his comment the other day because I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? Say, yeah, I'm good, I'm out. No, like now I'm
Yeah.
pumped and excited. And
Mhm.
and so I don't totally know how to answer your question because I don't know what is going to be big enough for me. I do know that I've always liked keeping it on the smaller end. And also in the business we're in, it's a people business. And I like to know all my people. And so, but I'm really excited. I'm happy with the trajectory we're going on. I think, I guess in broad strokes, it's like really building out the specialty areas, the
Right.
thought leadership and those kind of things, but still keeping it somewhat of an intimate thing that we really offer our clients is very bespoke too. Like no two mandates are the same, and I don't want to commoditize it.
Okay. Well, that's a choice, right? So there's a
Hmm.
lot of times. So that being said, as part of your growth strategy, maybe it would be great for you to share how somebody listening might want to get in touch with you and or Good Eggs if they'd like to chat about how your firm can support them with their content and context marketing in the digital world.
Yeah. So at our website, goodeggsandco.com, you can read more about us. You can reach out to me directly through there. Or I'm obviously very active on LinkedIn. So you can send me a message there, and I'm happy to chat all things content.
Excellent. One piece of fun Frank advice. I like to wrap up my chats asking for that little bit. Do you have something to share?
Yeah, well, I think it sort of ties in so much of what we talked about as far as like personal branding and your company and all those things and content marketing is be yourself, be authentic, and be relatable. Don't try to take yourself too seriously, and have fun and test it. Like, really, the damage can mostly be minimal. Of course, you could do something
Caveat.
right, caveat, but for the most part, people are so nervous to put a post out there or put a blog out there. The only way is to test and learn. But the thing that comes back as tried and true time and time again is don't try to create some voice that isn't yours. It's never gonna fly. So just be you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here today, Joanna.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks again to Joanna Track for being here on the Cash Rich Exit podcast. Her journey underscores the power of building brands, building your personal brand, something that stands out, whether you're scaling, selling, or starting fresh. And don't forget to be an owner and not a renter. If Joanna's advice sparked ideas for your own exit strategy, let's keep the momentum going. Book your one-on-one wealth gap analysis with me, Colleen O'Connell-Campbell. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Just look up my name. I'm the only one. Email me, colleen.campbell at RBC Dominion Securities. No, that's not accurate. It's actually colleen.campbell at rbc.com. Or share this episode with fellow founders who need to hear it. And if you learned something new today, help us reach more self-made entrepreneurs by subscribing, rating, and leaving a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for listening to the Cash Rich Exit podcast. I'm looking forward to welcoming you back again soon. I'm Colleen O'Connell-Campbell, wealth advisor at RBC Dominion Securities and your host. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.